Hey drummers, my name is Tyler. I'm the founder of Drummers Community. We started as a private Facebook group that now has over 100,000 members. Chances are you're already a part of that if you're watching this video, but if you're not, just get on Facebook, search for Drummers Community. It should be one of the first, if not the first thing to pop up. You'll need to answer at least one of those 3 questions, just so that I know that you're a real person and not a scammer. The email question is optional, although I highly recommend that you provide your email. That way you'll be part of our newsletter where you'll be always up to date with everything happening within this incredible community. So anyway, the purpose of this video, I've partnered with Carlos Plaza, an online drum instructor. We've been doing this thing for a couple months where I ask him some of the most commonly asked questions in the group, and he gives us a very well-educated, researched answer. It's been very well received so far, and I thank all of you who have been watching these. If you haven't seen any of the older episodes, you can check all of those out on Carlos's YouTube channel. You're probably already watching this on YouTube, so it should be very easy to find. If not, go to YouTube, type in Carlos Plaza, and it should pop right up. So anyway, without further ado, this week's Ask a Teacher question for Carlos is, what is a time signature?
Hey Tyler, thanks for the great question. What is a time signature? So before we get into that topic, which is one of my favorite things to talk about with my students, I want to make an announcement to all the viewers. Tyler over at the Drummers Community and I, as you can tell, are putting together these videos. We are also looking to grow the Drummers Community, so please feel free to go over to drummerscommunity.com and sign up for that newsletter if you haven't already. Maybe you're watching this video from the newsletter, in which case thank you very much. We are really trying to get as much great content out there for the Drummers Community as possible, and we're looking to grow it and expand it in new and interesting ways that you will be seeing and hearing about soon. So jump on that newsletter. That's where you're going to be seeing a lot of great info. And because you guys are Drummers Community members, I can give you 2 free drum lessons. You're going to get 1 full hour of free drum lessons with me. Just send me an email, Carlos Plaza Drums. Oof, I almost forgot my own email address. It's been a long day. carlosplazadrums@gmail.com. Just let me know you came from the Drummers Community. More info about me at carlosplazadrums.com. So let's get into this awesome topic about time signatures. All right, so let's get into this wonderful topic. What is a time signature? Before we talk about it, a very brief explanation of one important thing. I do think that you need to know what quarter notes are and eighth notes. You need to have a basic understanding of rhythm in order for this to really matter for you. If you don't have any of that understanding, reach out to me. Again, first 2 lessons are free, carlosplazadrums@gmail.com. I will talk to you about it. I'll send you a copy of my book that literally teaches you how to read rhythm theory very, very quickly. So you do have to have an understanding of that stuff. So for those of you who know kind of what a time signature is, you've already studied this, but you really just you're missing that last step before you really get it. Work with me here. I'm going to go at a slower pace for the people who have never even seen a time signature before. I'm going to have to go through all that stuff, but we will get into that final step that you're going to need to take to really understand this. So as you can see here, I have my program opened up. So the very first thing we're going to do, and this is what nobody did with me, again, how frustrating is that? The first thing we're going to do is answer the question, what is the purpose of a time signature? Okay? So and again, literally nobody ever posed it this way to me, and so that was very, very upsetting and very frustrating, because they tried to explain what a time signature was, but they never really got down to the heart of what the purpose of it was. What is the purpose of a time signature? To tell you how big the measure is. So again, if you don't know what a measure is, reach out to me and I'll explain it to you, but this is going to seem like a little bit too much to handle. So the point of the time signature is to tell you how big the measure is. Why does this matter? Well, because in lots of different kinds of music, there's different ways of structuring a guitar riff or a drum pattern, and some of them are longer or shorter. Again, the point of the time signature is to tell you how big the measure is. How big is this space in which I'm putting my notes for you to read it and go, okay, this is the pattern. So now that we know what the point of a time signature is, which is to tell you how big the measure is, let's actually take a look at an example. Again, pardon the crudeness of it. I'm just very comfortable with the Zoom app. This is what I'll be using if I give you a lesson. This is what a time signature looks like. It looks like a fraction. It's one number over another number, and both of those numbers have different meanings. So what I'm going to do here instead is I'm just going to put it x over x. Most people have seen the time signature 4 over 4. Maybe that's what you thought all music was, and then somebody said, oh, you can change the time signature, and you said, wait a minute, what the heck does that mean? And now you're here. So the top number is, I'm going to put here the number of, and the visual I want you to get is, for the top number is if I said to you, oh man, do me a favor, run to the store and grab 7. You'd say, well, 7 what? And I'd be like, just go, go grab 7. Maybe 8 actually, you know what, go grab 8. And he'd be like, okay, no problem, I'll go grab 8. 8 what, okay? So the top number is the number of, but we don't know yet of what. The bottom number is not supposed to be a number, and this drives me nuts. If somebody had just said this to me, man, it would have made sense. The bottom number is not a number. The bottom number is a representation of the type of note that we're going to be talking about. So if I've lost you a little bit, don't worry, it's all going to make sense. Trust me, I've done this 1,000 times, and it always works. I'm going to just kind of crudely draw here. The bottom number is a type of note. Don't think about it like a number. That'll confuse you. Think about it like a note. Okay, so this is a quarter note. Okay, if you don't know what a quarter note is, what the heck are you doing here? Okay, now the point of this, again, is to tell you how big the measure is. So the bottom number, in this case, the type of note that you're talking about, is telling you the type of note you're going to use to represent the size of the measure. Okay, so if I tell you, go to the store and grab 7 sandwiches, now you know what I'm looking for and how many. The time signature is telling you the type of note you're using, in this case quarter notes, and how many. Okay, so what you're used to seeing here, is 4 over 4. What that means is that this measure, a measure of 4 over 4, can fit 4 quarter notes inside of it. Again, that bottom number shouldn't be a number. So we're going to draw it again, but this time we're going to do 4 over, and then I'm going to very crudely draw a quarter note. And hopefully you're starting to see the picture here. 4 over 4 means that this measure can fit 4 quarter notes in it. Okay, let's go over to my other screen here. Again, this is MuseScore. This is the 3rd edition of MuseScore. Excellent program. I love it. I highly recommend it, especially if you're like kind of learning about music. It'll help you because you'll try to input information and the program will say, sorry, that's wrong. And so you'll go, oh, now I get it. You know, you'll start to understand more about music theory using a program that's not going to let you make a mistake. If you write something wrong on a piece of paper, on staff paper, the paper's not going to tell you that you're wrong. I'm going to just very quickly grab 4-4 over here. A time signature always goes at the front of a measure where the measure is a different size. This measure is 4-4, so is this one, so is this one. I don't have to copy paste this over here. It won't even let me, see? So because clearly this is 4-4, so is this. Everything that comes after it is 4-4. So this measure can fit, I'm going to draw it here, this measure can fit 4 quarter notes. That's what 4-4 means. Now, let me take 5-4, okay, and put that over here. Now, what you already were explained before is that the top number represents the number of, and the bottom number represents the type of note that you're talking about. So this measure fits 5 quarter notes. Notice how this whole rest didn't change because if it's telling you to rest, it doesn't matter how big or small the measure is, it's just telling you to rest. So a whole rest encompasses the entire measure no matter how big it is. This could say 20 over 4 and it would still just say, it would just still have one whole rest. How many quarter notes fit in this measure? Well, we know that we're talking about quarter notes and the top number is how many, so this measure can fit 5 quarter notes. Okay, so now I'm going to do that one more time. I'm going to grab 6-4 and put it here. Okay, how many quarter notes fit in this measure? 6. I'm going to throw 6 quarter notes in there. Oops. And now you can tell very clearly this measure is smaller than this one, which is smaller than this one. The measure, literally, the drawing itself, the image of the measure is bigger. It has to be because it has to fit more notes. But literally, this measure has 4, this measure has 5, this measure has 6 quarter notes. Again, what is the purpose of a time signature? To tell you how big the measure is, to tell you how much space you have to work with, okay? So now, one of the aha moments that I had was that I had only been thinking about time signatures in terms of one measure, but I didn't know how to apply that in the big picture. And so that's one of the things that you have to know. Don't wait as long as I did to finally understand that. We're going to talk about that right now. We're going to talk about different time signatures going next to each other, playing a measure of 4/4, then playing a measure with a different time signature than a different one. Okay? So now let's actually sound this out. Let's actually play this. And one of the things I'm going to do too is I'm going to throw accents in here on the one of each measure so that it's even more obvious where the beginning is of those measures. Okay, check this out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay? So that's what it sounds like when you go from playing a measure of 4/4 to 5/4 to 6/4. Obviously, you're just adding one more note every time you go. But this is pretty easy. You know, if you've stuck with me throughout this because that stuff you already pretty much knew, you wanted to get into the more complex stuff. Now we're starting to get there. So again, we were talking about the top note and the bottom note. The bottom note is not, the bottom number is not supposed to represent a number. It's supposed to represent a type of note. So what are the different types of notes? Whole notes, half notes, quarter notes, eighth notes, 16th notes, 32nd notes, and we'll cap it there, even though obviously 64th notes exist as well, and so on. Those are the types of notes that you can use to reference the size of your measure. Just like there's only so many different types of measurements, right? Inches, centimeters, millimeters, fine. So there's a few of them, but it's not an infinite number. There's only so many ways to measure space, right? Miles, light years, but so be it. There's only a certain number of ways to measure distance. There's only a certain number of notes that you can use to represent how big a measure is. So your bottom number can only be 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. So let's actually take it over to my other screen here. Let's pretend that the top number is 7, and the bottom number is 8. We know that the bottom number is not just any number, it's there to represent a type of note. What type of note do you suppose the bottom number of 8 is representing? It's eighth notes, right? So again, pardon my crude drawing here, but let me just draw an eighth note for you. Okay, that's not half bad. So the bottom number, if it's 8, really what it's saying is eighth notes. So this measure would fit 7 eighth notes in it. Okay, so now let's go back to the other screen. I'm going to grab a measure of 7/8, put it right here. Again, this measure can fit 7 eighth notes in it. The eighth note is the thing we're using to represent how big the measure is, and in this case we can fit 7 eighth notes in that measure. So let's put them in there. Let's put 7 eighth notes in this measure. Okay, as you can see, there's 7 eighth notes, and it's full. I don't have any more room for any other notes. If I try to put in another note, it would put it there for me. Okay, it's literally saying you're out of room. You said it could only fit 7 eighth notes. So here's where things get interesting. Let me bust out my metronome. Here's where things really matter. Oops, maybe I'll take the AirPod out so you can actually hear it. So, let's pretend this metronome is representing eighth notes. So, let's say you're just counting regular 4/4. It would be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, right? Let's say you wanted to count quarter notes as it is here. It would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so again, what matters is putting these time signatures next to each other and seeing how they sound next to each other. So I'm going to hit the metronome, I'm going to clap the 4 quarter notes, and then I'm going to clap the 7 eighth notes, and I'm going to loop them back and forth. You're going to hear me go from this measure to this measure multiple times, so you really hear what it sounds like. Check this out. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 5, 6, 7. Okay? So that's what it sounds like when you were playing a measure of 4/4 and then a measure of 7/8. Now, to make this even more clear, let's fill both measures with eighth notes. So we're just playing eighth notes, and we're going from 4/4 to 7/8. Okay, ready? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now, again, maybe that makes sense to you, but then when it'd be time for me to ask you a trick question or something in the time signature world, then you would start to get confused. It's because there's a lot of different versions of this, and some of them can be complicated. It doesn't mean that the concept of time signatures is complicated. It means that there's interpretations of it that are complicated. You know what I mean? You might learn how to multiply and know that any number multiplied by 1 is that same number. 25 times 1 is 25. And you think you know how to multiply, and then I ask you what's 0 times 1? Or what's 0 times 0? And then you're like, hey, wait a minute. That does something in my brain is saying, that makes things more complicated. For the longest time, I couldn't wrap my head around the fact that a negative number times a negative number equaled a positive, even though I had been multiplying numbers for years. So there are versions of this and interpretations of this where things will feel a little bit hairy. But at the end of the day, all we're doing is saying, this is how big the measure is. I'm going to use this note to represent it, just like I would tell you, hey, go get a piece of wood that's 6 feet. I'm using feet to represent how big I want the piece of wood. Okay, or I could say 37 inches, but then I'm using inches to represent the size of the piece of wood. I'm using the different kinds of notes to explain to the person reading it how big that measure is. How many eighth notes fit in this measure? 7. So now let's get into some of the fun stuff here. Let's go to the next level up. Okay? What if I say let's fill this measure of 7/8 with quarter notes? How many quarter notes fit in a measure of 7/8? One quarter note here, one quarter note here, one quarter note here, and then you know what? I don't have enough room for a 4th quarter note. Here I have room for 4 quarter notes. Okay? Because I have room for 8 eighth notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. There's 8 eighth notes in a measure of 4/4, which means if I just wanted to play quarter notes, I could fit 4. I do not have the same amount of space in this measure of 7/8. This measure of 7/8 is smaller than a measure of 4/4. Okay? So I can fit 3 quarter notes, but I can't fit a 4th. I can fit half of a quarter note. Okay, if you didn't know that an eighth note was half of a quarter note, then bam, you just got an extra little bit of information there. But I got more nuggets like that. Reach out to me. First lesson's free. Okay, carlspositdrums.com. The eighth note here is the last note that you can fit in. How many quarter notes can we fit in? 3, and then an eighth note. So how would we count this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay? So this is what it would sound like if I went from this measure to this measure and I was clapping it out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1. Okay? This is where it starts to get a little bit hairy. Okay, what if I take these out and I just want that eighth note all the way at the end? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7, 1, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. Okay, so a million different interpretations of this. Obviously, I'm not going to do all of them. We're going to be here all day. But now you're starting to kind of get a sense here of the thing that matters the most to understand time signatures is to know that the bottom number is not a number. It's a way of representing the type of note. And the top number is telling you how many of those fit. Notice, by the way, how I haven't used the word beat once yet. For those of you who have no idea what a time signature was before this, you didn't know that that was a part of the equation. Maybe you are a Berkeley alum and you're like, oh, let me watch this video. Let me see how well this guy knows his stuff. That guy's going to be wondering, why haven't I just said the quarter note gets the beat or the eighth note gets the beat? And the reason is right over here. The word beat has been co-opted by musicians, for better or worse, to mean something other than what it means when you're talking about time signatures. You're going to go, oh man, that was an awesome drum beat, or man, I love the beat of this song. Okay? it's been co-opted, and so it doesn't mean the same thing. And when my teacher was trying to explain time signatures to me, he kept on frustratingly saying, come on, it's, you know, the eighth note gets the beat, the quarter note gets the beat. And I didn't know what the heck he was talking about, and it would send him down the time signature rabbit hole, and he'd lose me. So I don't use the word beat because I don't think that it helps. I think that once you understand what a time signature is, and then you hear somebody say the quarter note gets the beat, then you go, oh, I know what that means. But you circumvent that idea first, so it doesn't stress you out. Okay, but just for the sake of explaining it, if you are talking about over 8, then you'd count the eighth notes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If it was over 4, then you'd count the quarter notes 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and that's just for the sake of simplicity. So here, again, if I turned all these into eighth notes, okay, instead of counting these the way you would normally count eighth notes, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, you'd count them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Because it's weird. It's not the worst thing in the world, but I agree that it's weird to go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 1 and something about that seems kind of weird. It makes more sense to just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It just makes more sense to do that. So whatever the bottom number is, those types of notes, in this case eighth note, in this case quarter note, that's the note that you're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, to keep things simple. So this is, and again, let me bust out my metronome here. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. All right. So we're going to leave it at that. I'm not going to show you over 16 or over 32. And the reason is because that's when things really start to get hairy, and I would love to be able to just talk to people about that one-on-one during their 1 hour free drum lesson. Again, it's an hour free if you're coming from the drummers community. If you're not from the drummers community and you found this, go to drummerscommunity.com, sign up for the newsletter, and then send me an email saying, hey, I'm in the drummers community, let me get my free hour. Tell me what the heck time signature means when it's over 16, and we will go over it. But again, as a refresher, bottom number is not a number. It's just a way of explaining the type of note that we're talking about, like inches or feet or miles, and the top number is how many. Okay. To wrap it up, thank you, Tyler, over at the drummers community. You guys are going to be seeing a lot more from us, a lot more of these Ask a Teacher segments, and we are trying to create as much great content for the people of the drummers community as we can. Please feel free to reach out to me for your one free drum lesson, carlspazadrums@gmail.com. And there's more information about me at my website, carlspazadrums.com. Take care, guys.